Our next guest says cutting taxes for small business will help boost the U.S. jobs picture. Joining us now from Washington, House Majority Leader, Congressman Eric Cantor. Although it was an interesting conversation, Eric. And Leader, we always have you on remotes now. You're doing all this other stuff. You can't come into the studio and sit here. You're so busy.
Look, just waiting for the invitation.
All right. Well, we'd like to have you in here. We'll talk about the jobs thing in a minute, but I don't think you've been on since Romney became what we really are calling the presumptive nominee at this point. What's your feelings, thoughts about that? I guess you're happy.
No question. I mean, I am thrilled to see that our party is coalescing behind Mitt Romney. I believe he will be the next president of the United States after the election in November. And I've always said that, you know, Mitt Romney is the only one out there with a pro-growth, bold plan to bring the economy back and to get people back to work. He's a demonstrated track record of doing it, and I'm really excited, as are my colleagues here in Washington, to get on with this campaign.
And I know we're going to talk about a jobs plan today, but I'll tell you, we're not getting a whole lot less cynical here on this desk or the American public. We see a budget introduced that gets 0 votes, so that side is not serious about doing anything between now and the election. I'm talking about the Democrats, and then I'm not really sure, you know, that your side is serious about getting anything done. Should we just not try to do anything till November, Eric? Or?
You know, listen, I think the last time we were on, we were talking about the success that we had on the Jobs Act. And, you know, that was a bill that, frankly, was signed into law by the president a few weeks ago. And although it wasn't the be-all that end-all, it certainly is a huge step forward to help entrepreneurs and inventors try and access capital to launch their businesses. And we know that over the past 3 years, there's been a 23% decline in small business startups. That bill went right to that question. And that's similar to the kind of thing we're bringing to the floor tomorrow. We want to go right to the point of job generation, which are small businesses in this country that have for too long been penalized by Washington and not been back in the game. And we're trying to get job creation through small businesses back in the game.
All right, so what's going to happen tomorrow? Is it going to pass?
It's going to pass the House. We've got a strong support.
What about the Senate?
Well, you know, listen, the president has now issued a veto threat against the bill, which is kind of puzzling because the president has continued to say he's for small businesses, he's for the middle class, and yet he's now denying any help to small businesses who, frankly, could use a 20% tax cut as a step forward, as a pro-growth measure to try and jumpstart the economy.
But Eric, you see what I'm saying? It's not going to go. Right? You know that. So we're doing all this. We're doing all this stuff. The other day, you saw his move was the Buffett rule. He knew that wasn't going to go. It wasn't even close. It was nine votes short. So we went through all that with him. And then afterwards, he and his administration get to talk about it, and Schumer and all the Democrats get to talk about it. You guys blocking help for the middle class. Now, this isn't going to work in the Senate, and you guys are going to get to talk about the president not wanting to help small business. And here we go. That's the problem.
Well, listen, it comes down to whether, you know, they're going to get serious on the other side of the aisle to want to embrace pro-growth policies. If you look today, Steve Forbes is out talking about this small business tax cut as a first step towards pro-growth policies. And we all know we've got to go about reforming the tax code to broaden the base, bring down the rates for everybody, get rid of the loopholes that actually put Washington in place of picking winners and losers through the tax code. We all know that. We also know, though, that any kind of tax reform that's been put on the table is rejected by the president and Harry Reid in the Senate because it doesn't raise taxes. All they have done is continue to say we got to raise taxes. Now, look, I'm as frustrated as you are, and I think that there are going to be some issues that have to be resolved through this election, and taxes is certainly one of them. It's a question of whether the American people are going to think, hey, we've got a revenue problem in Washington, or do we have a spending problem?
But why
I think most people say we've got a spending problem.
Why can't it be a combination of both?
Well,
and that's not to suggest that the Democrats, by the way, have approached it in that way either. They often talk about balance, and yet it really is for them about taxes on the wealthy without really talking about entitlements.
Well, Andrew, I think the issue is this. If it is so important for the other side to raise taxes, then at least let's sit down and talk about how we fix the problem of the spending, because if you don't address the problem of the deficit and debt, raising taxes is like throwing good money after bad. And how can you go and ask people in this country to pay more into Washington if you're not going to retire the debt, if you're not going to fix the problem? And that's the fundamental point of disagreement. They have never come forward with a budget, nor have they come forward with a determined plan to fix the problem. And that's where we believe we've been very straightforward and clear. We want to fix the problem here in Washington, and we want to grow this economy.
What's going to happen at the end of the year, Eric?
Well, the end of the year is certainly a problem, and what we're doing in the House is trying to prepare for what many people are calling Tax-mageddon.
I know.
And so what we're doing right now is we're laying out sort of a vision for the kind of tax reform that we want to see. Again, this small business tax cut is a step in the right direction. Overall tax reform means bringing rates down for everybody. We've also got this threat of the sequester that is coming, and this is something that actually will threaten our ability to defend this country. The officials at the Pentagon have said they cannot endure this kind of across-the-board cut, and we're trying in the House to prepare for that. We'll put forward a bill in May that will actually substitute out the kind of cuts to the Pentagon with other cuts that we believe reflect sort of the common sense vision of how you take the country forward, how you save some of these programs and accomplish efficiencies and get rid of the waste.
Good morning, Eric. It's Carly Fiorina. How are you?
Hey, Carly, I'm fine. Good to hear you.
Nice to be with you as well. You know, one of the things that you and I have talked about in the past, and I've certainly talked about on other occasions on this show, is the need to restore the entrepreneurial foundation of this nation, and in particular, focus on small business. And one of the things that was so encouraging about the Jobs Act and encouraging about the legislation that you're putting forward tomorrow is a focus on small business. Stepping back, what do you think are the chances in November, after the election, in sort of reorienting Washington's point of view to focus on small business instead of big business and big labor and big government? Think about the tax code from the small business owner's point of view. Think about the regulatory regime from the small business owner's point of view. Because as you point out, we have more small businesses failing and fewer starting now than at any time in the last 40 years, and that's a structural problem we have to address.
It's absolutely right on point, Carly. We've got to adopt a mentality in this country that we're going to be a startup country again. It's what built the country. I mean, if you think about it, most people, not everybody, but most people and their families came here for a reason, because they were in search of a better life. And they came here because they took a risk. And so our small business culture in this country is premised on the fact that entrepreneurs are willing to put their capital at risk, are willing to go out there and attempt to earn their success. That's what is the backbone of the American marvel of the economy. And you're right, we've got to get back into that mentality. It's a pro-growth, competitive mentality that will end up attracting global capital here and will allow entrepreneurs to flourish. Right now, we've got too much regulation in place. We've got high tax burdens and the threat of even higher tax burdens. So it's holding back entrepreneurs. And you're absolutely right. We've got to remember what's built this country. And so many people who've been so successful in this country tell me that if they had to do it over again right now, they couldn't, because of the uncertainty and the price of risk being imposed by Washington.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought, but I got another one for you, Eric. Do you have a preference for when do you think we'll know? Romney yesterday said it will know before the convention. But he wouldn't really say when. He's got one of his people looking into it. Beth Myers is going to be doing the search. Do you have a top 5 that you'd like on the ticket?
No, listen, I know Mitt Romney is going to make the right decision. He is going to be the standard bearer of our party. He's going to take an economic message and have a running mate that I'm sure is consistent with that. And it's my desire to want to see an emboldened and strengthened majority in the House. And to reflect really a growing Republican Party that is a inclusive party and one that is really open to all comers, and that we want to rally behind a pro-growth small business message.
I just remembered what I wanted to ask you, and that is like on in trade, and I don't know, in trade with Obama is still at 60%, but for the House it was much higher. For Republicans keeping the House, that's come down quite a bit. Do you know? I mean, are you on a daily basis in tune with how all those races are going, the key races? Do you think you're going to keep the House Republican?
Yeah, I'm confident, and we're working hard to make sure we take nothing for granted, because we picked up 65 new seats last cycle, and I think it's been demonstrated that we, in our new majority, want to affect the kind of reforms here in Washington to bring the country back to a growth-oriented future. And we're fighting very hard. We've got some great candidates that are stepping up, and we're playing offense as well as having many incumbents that are much more solid footing after we've been through the redistricting process and facing this election.
All right. Well, we'll see, because a lot of those guys said, I only care if I serve 2 years because I'm going to shake things up. And when you do things like that, you may, we saw what happened to some of those guys in 08 that voted for the Affordable Care Act, and they're back working in the Jiffy Lube or something. Anyway, Leader Cantor, we appreciate your time today, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks.
All right.
Great.